Welcome back, everybody. I don't normally do top-down videos, but my studio is getting rearranged and is a little bit of a mess, and I thought the top-down format played nice with today's subject. Recently, a client of mine asked if I wanted to document a really interesting building they were building. It's a straw bale insulated structure, and I'd never seen one of those get built, so I agreed. And driving home, I realized I don't know the first thing about construction documentaries. So I thought at the time, hey, I should do a video about this and share what I learned, which is what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you the equipment I use and some of the insights I've had. Two quick notes. I am not a construction expert or a construction site safety expert. That's something that if you're going to do this, you're going to have to educate yourself. This isn't a guide to safety on a construction site or construction itself. I got to Calc 2 and decided that engineering wasn't for me, so I did not follow in my father's footsteps and instead got an art degree. So you've been warned on that. Please research safety no matter what you're doing and make sure you're educated and keep yourself safe. Note 2, as I've mentioned in a lot of my videos, I worked in the camera industry. It's been about a half a decade since I left. It's safe to assume that occasionally some of the gear that I got at a discount. I'm a longtime shooter of 2 different brands, and I've bought a third recently. I'm not brand loyal. I use the right tool for the right job. Just so you're aware, some of this was probably bought at a discount. Let's start with the bag that I use. This is a bag by Tenba. As you can see, construction sites are quite dirty, and it has gotten quite filthy. It's a 16-liter bag in their Fulton 2 series. It's got a cool little roll top here. You can adjust the strap and fit more or less stuff in the top, which is handy for things that don't need as much padding. And then it's got a front pouch for things like a laptop, and there's some other like office essential sorting things. Has a rain cover. Can hold a tripod on one side and a water bottle on the other if you want to get rid of the rain cover. And it's got a decent amount of space inside. So this is how I get my gear to the site every day. As far as cameras went, I wanted something that was not only going to do a good job image quality wise, but also it had to survive. These environments are incredibly dusty and dirty, sometimes wet, so I needed really rugged cameras. Unfortunately, that rules out my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K because it's not weather sealed. It's not particularly small once I have it rigged out. So decided I was going to do a hybrid mirrorless instead, and I'm bringing 2 bodies with me. The first is my recently acquired, very used, Olympus EM1 Mark III. These cameras are known for their durability and weather sealing. While I don't recommend it, I've seen people run water over some Olympus cameras to clean them or just to show how weather sealed they are. I'm not that brave, but they are incredibly durable cameras. They have in-body image stabilization, which I really haven't had to use, but I like if I do have to do a handheld shot. I'm not the steadiest of platforms, so it's nice to have that. This one does have a log profile if you want to shoot in log. I haven't been. It's also got a flat profile. And coupled to that, I have my Olympus 12 to 40 millimeter Pro lens. It's a 2.8 aperture lens. It's got this slick little manual focus clutch, and I do most of the shooting in manual, but it's nice if I do need to autofocus, I can just snap that forward and the autofocus takes over. That is a really great lens because you don't always get to stand where you want. The construction crews have right away. They're busy getting a job done and want to go home. So I need to be able to move around. So at 12, that's a 24 millimeter equivalent on a full frame. I get pretty wide shots, so I can be very close to something and still capture it all. And then if I need to zoom in a little bit, it's an 80 millimeter equivalent on a full frame on the long end. It's sharp, it's durable, it's also very weather sealed. And I chose to use that as my main camera, and it's done a great job. For my second camera, I've brought the EM5 Mark III, another very durable camera where the EM1 has dual memory cards and a bigger battery. This has a little smaller battery and only single memory cards, but it's generally a second camera, not doing as important to work. And on that, it's got a nice hood. 300 millimeter equivalent on the long end, 28 millimeter on the short end. It's just a really solid lens. It's not as sharp as the Pro lens, but it is still weather sealed. I use this for details that I can't get close to and for a lot of outside work, things like establishing shots or where I'm getting a really small detail from a good distance away. It has also done a great job. It does not have a log profile, but it does have a flat color profile. So if you want to color grade, that's available. Both of these have awesome autofocus. And there's a lot of lenses available that have weather sealing for the system. They just re-released a couple of my favorites and added weather sealing, so I may be shopping for lenses here soon. Next thing we need to talk about is filters. Both of these cameras have filters on them right now. This one's got an ND filter. This one has a glass filter. The reason I did that, I'm a fan of filters most of the time to protect the front ends of lenses. Some people aren't, and there's arguments both ways. I like having them. And this is a super messy environment. They were using a stone saw, which is a wet saw outside. And I even had splatter marks on my car, which is at least 40 yards away from the site. These are super weather sealed cameras, but I don't want to clear an abrasive substance off the front of a glass element. There's just too much chance for scratching the coatings. Probably replacing the front element on either of these lenses would exceed the value they have on the used market. So filters are a cheap way to not have to worry about that. I also carry, and I'll show you later, a great deal of everything from polarizers, ND filters, some specialty filters. I carry a ton with me, some not even designed for these lenses. They're just light enough that I throw a big collection in my bag all the time. So that's something I'm always running. And a note on construction sites and lenses, these come to the site assembled. I don't do any assembly on site. I don't swap lenses on site because when I was working at the camera store, we had a client that did a lot of construction documentaries and his sensors were filthy and he paid a lot to have them cleaned, occasionally scratched one and had to have it serviced. That's really expensive and unnecessary. If everything is sealed, don't swap things, don't let the dirt in. And I haven't had any problems. These have really good dust shedding systems in them. A problem that I ran into on a recent shoot, and thankfully I found one in my car, I got all the way out to site and realized that I'd had a telephoto lens on this camera and had swapped the tripod plate to the tripod foot on the lens. When I switched back to this lens, I forgot to move the plate, got all the way out to site with 2 tripods and 2 cameras and no camera plates. So I always carry a spare. These are super cheap. All of my tripods for this use Arca Swiss plates. So easy to carry. As a matter of fact, I try to keep those in all of my bags. I also keep a little case with a few extra memory cards. These aren't very big nor very fast, but I could at least capture 1080 footage if I had to, if I managed to get there without a memory card. I haven't done that for this yet. I have done it on personal shoots, so that lives in my bag. We'll throw that in the top in a bit. Speaking of it being a dirty site, I also always bring a little rocket blower. That gets used a ton. Lens pens, I think these are made by Zeiss, but there's other brands. Lens cleaning wipes and a cheap little cleaning cloth that I got. I think that came free with a filter. We'll shove those in the top here in a second. Audio is really hard on these sites because they're very loud and we can't use copyrighted music for the project because I don't want to pay the licensing fees. We don't have that kind of budget to use what somebody might be listening to on their Bluetooth speaker on the site. Between that and loud equipment going all the time, capturing live audio has been a challenge. When I get a pristine environment, I've got this little, it's made by Sennheiser, it's the MKE 200 shotgun mic, has really good wind protection. It's not great on the bass end. It sounds a little thin, but not so thin I can't use it in post. Can't fix it in post, rather. That always comes with me. And then I've got these Hollyland Lark wireless mics. This is a half empty case, or 2/3 empty case, because I'm using them right now. It's got built-in noise reduction, which I need because my studio is not very quiet. Good battery life, reasonable audio quality, and they're inexpensive. I think it was just over $100 for those. Comes with all sorts of different ways to mount them and cabling and everything that you need. So that comes with me all the time. This has pretty big batteries and has good battery life, but I bring a spare of each, at least one spare of each. If I know it's going to be a long day, sometimes I'll bring more than those 2, but generally at least one spare of each. And then the last thing for the inside of the bag is a little roll of Velcro strips. It's like duct tape, but it's not sticky. It just sticks onto just about any part of the inside of the bag. I use them to lash down straps or cables or whatever I need to tie down. Those are super handy. They're super cheap, and they're really easy to get into the bag. Then into the top, occasionally I'll shove a rain jacket in here, collapsible, packable one if I'm going to be outside. But generally I'm not. Cleaning gear goes in there, memory cards go in there. And then, as I mentioned, I'm not an expert in this, but it's a dusty environment. Turns out I'm slightly allergic to the straw bales when they get aerosolized by, they trim them with weed whackers, and it puts a lot of stuff up into the air. So I bring some kind of KN95 or N95 masks with me. I don't care about this brand one way or the other. They work fine, but most of them work fine. I just had these, so a couple of those usually live in the bag, as do a pair of hearing protection headphones. I don't like the ones that go in your ear, but you can probably save a few bucks and have a little more convenience by getting the disposable ones if you don't mind something shoved in your ear canal. These are what I use. They work great. It's not so quiet. I feel like I can't hear the world around me, but it is a lot quieter, especially when they're running big saws or air hammers or things like that. It can get really loud. Quick visit from Future Jeff here. I got all the way done recording this, shut off the lights, and realized I didn't show you the filters that ride up in the top part of the bag. So I keep them in a Ziploc bag. I need to find a better solution than that. But I've got all these cases that hold my filter collection. There's ND filters, circular polarizers, protection filters, and that kind of thing. And I have found that if I try to only bring the ones for the lenses that I have, I inevitably leave something behind. Also have these rectangular ones. There's some graduated NDs and that kind of thing in there. Those do require a special holder. So I just bring everything that I've got with me for these kinds of deals. That way I never swap to a different lens and don't have an ND filter or something that I absolutely need. And because this bag has the roll top, it fits in just fine. So that is the part that I promised and forgot to record. For tripods, I do have cinema tripods, but they're really heavy. So I use these. Shut the bag out of the way here. This is by SmallRig. There's a bunch of brands out on Amazon that are very similar. I bought this for under 50 bucks during a Black Friday sale. I think it's just over that right now. I think it was 55 when I looked this morning. They're fine. Are they great? No. Are they super durable? I wouldn't want to step on one of the legs and test that, but it gets reasonably tall and they're super light and easy to carry around. They're super cheap, so if I break one, I'm not going to be that mad as long as I don't break the camera that's sitting on the top. I've got a pair of these, one shoved into the tripod pocket here on the side and one in my hand, and I don't have to make multiple trips to my car when I get to the site. It's worked really well. They all use the same plates. So that's what I'm using for tripods. Another note on the tripods, because the construction crews really need to get their work done, occasionally I have to move because they need the space that I'm in, and these are super lightweight, so they're easy to just pick up with the camera on there and move it around, and that's been super nice. This one has one of the removable legs, so you could actually use it as a monopod too, although I never do. Oops. Last thing I'm going to talk about today is food and water. This site is not close to anything convenient like a convenience store or a grocery store or a restaurant. And it's summertime here, so it's really, really hot. So I bring a big cooler with some reusable ice packs and throw these in, or maybe a reusable water bottle. I've got a couple of those as well. Depends on what's convenient. And I bring some snack bars with me too. Sometimes construction doesn't end when you want it to, and if I'm hungry, that's nice to just give myself a little bit of energy. Occasionally I do bring some other gear. I've brought one of my infrared cameras. If you followed this channel, you may have seen me use infrared cameras before. They're not like thermal cameras, they're near infrared, but it's a really shocking black and white image that they create, and I enjoy that just to capture people's attention when they're watching documentaries. They are very not weather sealed, the two that I have, so generally they come in a separate bag, and I only use them far away from the site and then zoom in to capture what I need to capture for external stuff. This is the kit that I use most of the time. It has been really reliable. I've got hours of footage at this point, so it's going to be fun to cut it down to the documentary when we're all done, which should be late this year. That is how I'm approaching this shoot. If you've had any experience that you'd like to share, or if you have any questions, please put those down in the comments section. I love hearing from you and interacting with people that watch my videos. I hope you found this video useful. Please like and subscribe. This is a growing channel, and it's actually going along at a pretty good clip, but I really enjoy the support. Good luck in your art journey. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.